All right, war number 5 here, and we're up against CIRR. This is a pretty exciting war for me because this is the first alliance that we have matched that was in Masters last season. So, I feel really confident about our alliance. I think that we're going to be competitive against really any alliance at this point. But it's nice to to get that vindication if you're able to put together a good performance against an alliance that was in Masters. So anyway, pretty excited about this war. We're going to jump right in. I totally just skipped the ban part of this recording. I just forgot to do it, but they did ban the usual, which is Quake, Kingpin, and Apocalypse, so we won't have access to them yet again. Not really a big deal. All right, so left side here. I saw this fight and I was like, you know what? Nebula is just going to make this so easy. Let's go with Nebula. And then I thought, hey, that Nebula person could take this fight. That's perfect. Nebula is a sick and tired attacker, and this node has the region mechanic. So we just sent this Nebula person up this path. He is our Mr. Negative player, so we had him use Mr. Negative for this mangog. But, obviously you can do this. You can do this mangog with Human Torch. You just, it's got masochism over time, so Human Torch is a good option. You just play Stun Immune. You can use Scorpion. I mean, you've got plenty of options for this fight. It was just kind of these. So we had him go Nebula here. We had this person just use a Torch and an Omega Sentinel because we sent that person up this way. You guys will see the fights in Section 2 as well. But an Omega Sentinel is Buffet Immune and has that heal block pre-fight. So she's good for Conduit. And we had him use Omega Sentinel for this fight and this fight. Over here, these are two easy Corvus fights, but we ended up just having somebody use Hulkling, and then that Hulkling took Path 3 in Section 2. We'll get to that again. But, yeah, here for this Guardian is just a standard Hulkling. Just don't knock him down fight. All right, Path 4, we've got this Terrax, and we just sent a CGR. The only thing you have to worry about on this node is insult to injury. Just make sure that you're not assuming that your parries are going to stick. If you do that, you could end up taking a couple hits or a combo or whatever. But that is it. So Corvus here, and then this person. This is a Kitty lane. So this person just took all 3 of these fights with Kitty, and this person, this is going to be like a Human Torch fight, really, with Flame on. I guess you could probably, what we did, I'll just tell you what we did. We have a person with a rank 4 Silver Centurion. And, that person's roster is a little bit limited. So, I've tried to get his Silver Centurion involved in our attack plan. I do like Silver Centurion. I have him at rank 3. He's just not the most useful war attacker. But he does have access, pretty easy access to a heal block, which is with his SP1. He does not crit, so that bypasses spiked armor. But that person has taken this exact placement with his rank 4 Silver Centurion twice now this season. He's soloed both times, but it's just not a great, not really a smooth fight. So we're probably going to be done with that, and we'll look for another option. You can definitely do like Nebula here, who's sick and tired. You could also do a Blade with who's also sick and tired attacker with the full Trinity, and even with the spiked armor, I think that you get around that with most of your hits. All right, and then moving on to the right island here. So this Gallon placement down here on Conflictor is really good. We sent, just because of what we wanted to do in Section 2, we sent a person with a Falcon here and Guidance. And we just had him play it without knockdown. Now, you can definitely use like a Corvus here with Guidance. You can obviously use Human Torch. Basically, for any of these Conduit fights, you can use Human Torch to Flame on. I think that Apocalypse would be, very, very good for that fight if he wasn't banned. But he is banned. So we sent Falcon, and basically this node it's obviously got Conflictor, but it's also got... I can't remember what the node is called, but the defender they use 50% less of their power when they're throwing a special. So Basically, in this fight, he can just kind of chain his SP1s. And the issue is that with that is every time he throws a special one, he gets 40 planetary mass. And once he gets above 100 planetary mass, so basically if he throws 3 of those specials, then he is going to instantly instigate the harvest, and he will deal burst damage to you, even through block. So, the person soloed, he played it perfectly. He played it exactly like we discussed, but he finished at about 50% health. So we'll probably look for an alternative option there. But I do like this placement for Gallon. Fortunately, that person just had one other fight with Falcon, and so just cost a couple potions. The fight itself was very, very easy. It was just that unavoidable harvest damage, which is kind of a pain to deal with. So anyway, and then we had a different person take this fight, I believe with a bishop, but you can use Kitty here. You have a ton of options. Basically, your standard options for Kingpin, you can use here. I think that Kitty is probably the safest option because even if Kingpin gets to his SP3, which does inflict a stun debuff, as long as Kitty's phased, she won't be stunned. So she's probably the safest option here, but Bishop is also a really, really good option. Who cares? And then I took this path here with Cosmic Ghost Rider for both of these fights. And then I used Human Torch with no Flame On for this, but I did take Dex off just to make sure that I wasn't, feeding, getting degened and feeding his Mystic Dispersion, stuff like that. So I was initially going to use Flame On for this just because it's a mojo, and mojo is kind of scary. But I wanted to save my Flame On to place on a mini-boss for somebody else who needed to use their own Flame On for a Section 2 fight, and we'll actually talk about that fight here in a second. So I took that without Flame On, and, spoiler alert, it went fine. All right, and then moving up here, I think I already mentioned, but we used Nebula here. Here we used Kitty. This is the other fight that we had that Falcon for in Section 1, and this Thing fight was actually shorter than the Gallon fight, which I guess makes sense because Gallon was able to just keep recycling his special attacks, which takes a little bit of time. But I think that this fight was like 1 minute or something like that. Pretty funny. All right, and then I think we're going to move up to the left island in Section 2. Okay, perfect. So this fight I initially wanted to assign Nimrod. It does have buffet over time, but Nimrod can just nuke this fight so fast that doesn't matter. That person's Nimrod was on defense, so we sent him with an Omega Sentinel, and Omega Sentinel got through this fight without losing any health. Very, very simple, and maybe for this placement, Omega Sentinel actually is probably better and safer than Nimrod. It's hard to imagine that because I know that Nimrod would get this fight done in 20 seconds. But she is immune to a buffet, and this does have buffet over time. She is not immune to poison. She just takes no damage from poison effects. But you only really have to worry about the paralytic poisons if you get 10 of them on you, then you'll get passively stunned. Or if you're immune and you would have gotten 10 on you, then you'll get passively stunned. It just doesn't matter here because the fight is over so quickly. We did have our Torch guy just go up this path. He used Omega Sentinel for these 2 fights here. And then he used Torch with Flame On for this fight. Now, you need Flame On here just because even with the energy vulnerability, when Korg has his rock stacks, he will purify debuffs, and every time he purifies a debuff, he will give himself an additional rock stack. So basically, you just need Human Torch with Flame On. That person finished at like 98% health. And again, I already kind of mentioned this, but Korg has the biggest native energy vulnerability in the game. I think his energy resist is like minus 800. So if you can use basically any energy dealing champ, especially a champ that only has energy based attacks like Human Torch, it is very, very easy. And I imagine that fight took like 25 seconds. Over here, who did we use? I can't really remember, but yeah, I mean, we sent somebody with this is just Chitinous Sword, so we sent somebody with Bleed Immune here, and I think this is a Hulkling, so I can't remember who we sent here. And then the guy that took this path here, just use Tiger for this path. We use Tiger quite a bit on Mini Island because people are placing a lot of the Conduit Cosmics on Mini Island, and Tiger's interaction with Conduit is really weird. It's actually kind of hard to explain, and I don't fully understand it, but she's able to get Conduit defenders down. So he just used Tiger for this node. All right, moving along. Middle section here. Okay, so this person got to finally use his rank 4 Overseer on attack. Overseer is a great option for this particular placement because Overseer cannot be nullified. So, plus obviously he's poison immune, but yeah, he won't get armor broken or anything like that. You don't have to worry about anything against Man-Thing with Overseer. And then he used Nimrod for this fight. I talked a little bit about this placement in Nimrod last war. I don't think that Nimrod is the safest option, but Nimrod's just so powerful that I just keep sending him to this fight. So anyway, he got that down, and then we used a rank 4 Mole Man for this fight. Just use the unstoppable mechanic. His Mole Man gains unstoppable if he takes a blocked hit and has at least 1 monster mass, and you can just use the quote-unquote Killmonger counterpunch mechanic to essentially, fake an intercept on this node in this path here, and it'll work just the same. So Mole Man did that. Over here we just had, I believe, a Dr. Doom here, and this is just a regular Doom Cycle fight. Don't even have to worry about knockdown. And then Human Torch with Flame On here for Rintra because this does have Mighty Charge. So without Flame On, he's just going to shrug the Incinerates. And Rintra does have some elevated energy resist. So just getting that Flame On, I think, really helps. Over here, God, who do we use over here? I think we used... okay, I remember. This person used Symbiote Supreme for this fight because we actually used Symbiote Supreme for the boss, and then this is the same guy that used Silver Centurion in Section 1, and he got to use Silver Cent for this kitty fight. So, very, very hard counters to both of these fights that rarely we would send out on attack, but in this war, it just worked out that way. All right, so this is a super scary placement here, and again, with that extra 75% conflictor on this node, it's just really scary. We ended up sending Kitty Pride here, and she worked really well. She does great here. Just a little bit longer of a kitty fight, and definitely a scary kitty fight. I would never want to mess with that one. But that person took Kitty here, or used Kitty here. He went up this path. He used Tigra for Ebony Maw here. And then he used Kitty for this fight as well, and his third attacker was Guidance, or I'm sorry, White Mags for Guidance. I took this path here. I brought my newly rank 4 Omega Sentinel for this fight, and then I just used Torch with no Flame On here and an Invuln just to be super safe, but I didn't need it. And then over here we had the Nebula guy use Nebula for this fight, and then he used a rank 3 Thing for this Magneto here. And then our Kitty Tiger guy took this Cersei with Tiger. But, Rintra is good there too. If you don't have a Rintra or a Tiger, you can also use, like, Archangel would work really well there. Although it does have, what's the node? Rich Get Richer, so you just have to pay attention to that. But ultimately not really a big deal. Okay, so I talked about this, but or I mentioned this. We did go ahead and use Symbiote Supreme for this boss fight. Symbiote Supreme is another sick and tired attacker. I think that he's a less relevant one. But on the boss node, because the boss node has those resist buffs, every time you hit the defender with a physical or energy-based attack, they will gain the corresponding resist buff. And Symbiote Supreme is just really a good option for any champ that he can take that's not a counter to him on the boss node because of that. So, we did send that person out with one of the symbiote synergies. I think he just brought Venom just to give him a 25% chance for his nullifies, or I'm sorry, his staggers to refresh when they expire, just to, for extra help here. But this is the type of fight that with full Mystic Dispersion, we also had him use full Deep Wounds. So 5 out of 5 deep wounds. He ended up finishing this fight at like 98% health, and it's the type of fight that once you get to the SP3 with Symbiote Supreme, the fight's over. With Mystic Dispersion, you're just going to continuously cycle between your SP2s, and sometimes you'll get pushed up to your SP3. So, but you just keep doing that. You'll keep applying bleeds. You'll keep applying armor breaks. So you'll have all those debuffs. I don't know how fast that fight was, but I would imagine it took probably about a minute. And just completely an SP2, SP3 nuke fest. So very, very easy there. We had Tigra take this fight, and then we had Kitty take both of these fights. He did say that just with the power gain on this fight, you know, Kitty is just, it was a lot more stressful than he expected. So obviously with Kitty against Mephisto and a conduit defender, you're not going to want to throw specials. But you know, with his aura of Incinerate or whatever that, you know, is going to give him power, plus the node power, plus Mystic Dispersion, you know, it's just a lot of power to deal with. So he soloed this fight, but we're going to go with Torch with Flame On in the future. We used that matchup in the other two battle groups, and it was considerably faster and a lot less stressful. So we'll just do that going forward. You can also like use a blade here if you have the full blade trinity. He is a mystic or a dimensional being too, so you wouldn't even need the full blade trinity for that. But I think that the Starkey synergy would definitely help to give him that elevated danger sense. Obviously, you can also use Torch here with a Flame On. You honestly probably use Torch with no Flame On here, but you would want guidance in that case. We used Kitty for both of these fights here. You can use a Rintra for this fight. I think we used a Rintra for this placement in one of the other battle groups. And, you know, you can also use like a Nebula for this fight, but Tigra is really a good counter for just this node in general because her ruptures do feed Polka Dot power, and then also with a heavy buffer like, you know, Mega Sentinel with her armors and Mystic Dispersion. Mystic Dispersion is unaffected by Polka Dot power. So very easy Tigra fight. And then we took Torch with Flame On here, and this is the node that, or the fight that I saved my Flame On so that I could place for somebody else who was going to be max boosted for their fights. They took all three of these fights here going up, so that's why that person took that fight instead of me. So, okay, let's join up. Oh, and then we used Torch with Flame On here, but yeah. Anyway, you could use, it's kind of just any. You could use Red Hulk if you wanted to, whatever. All right. Alright, did I pull up the bands? I didn't. Okay, that's okay. So this is going to be our team, but we're going to have Human Torch in there instead of White Magneto for a couple of those fights that I talked about, the Mojo in Section 1 and the Dragon Man in Section 2, and then placing Flame On that Sasquatch mini-boss. Alright, so we're moving on over to Path 9, and our first fight is going to be this Void. I mentioned it last war, and I've taken this fight I don't know how many times, but a lot of times over the last several seasons since he's been placed there. Basically, since it's had the Hazard Shift Schadenfreude node, and the rotation can be a little bit different with this. You really just want to get out of this fight as quickly as possible. The rotation that I recommend, although you can do the standard rotation, is use a Power Start 1 boost, parry, Light Ender to get that power gain. That's going to push you right under 2 bars of power, and then you just parry again. You're going to have to do like 1 or 2 hits, and then you just throw your SP2. You don't have to worry about getting your judgments up. You don't have to worry about Fates healing him with Damnation, nothing like that. It's literally get to your SP2, and with Cosmic Power Back boosts, it's going to push you right up to an SP3, and you can just throw that, and you should be able to get out of this fight without any health lost if you are not running suicides. If you are, then you should be able to get out of this fight with 95% health, losing only a little bit of health to recoil. So here you guys see, I'm going to throw 2 hits, SP2. I'm only up to the SP2 here, which is fine. We're just going to throw it right over. And because I didn't get up to the SP3, I did have a little bit of poison, or I took some debuff damage from Void because I was inflicted with one of those poisons. So ended up finishing that fight with 91% health, complete failure. but that's okay. All right, and then critically, if you are using the Power Start 1 strategy on node 9 here, for this node, if you're using CGR, you just need to get rid of your Power Start 1 boost, because that will throw off your power in this fight. You need to do the full standard rotation, which is going to be parry, medium ender, parry, or I'm sorry, parry light ender, parry medium ender, and then medium ender into your SP2. Or parry heavy, Jesus. Parry heavy, parry light ender, parry medium into SP2. And you guys can see that I missed a couple parries at the beginning of this fight. Same thing happened last war when I took Human Torch on this node. I don't understand why, but it's just missing parries, man. It's just the parry timing, it feels off still. And I feel like it's only on certain nodes, which is really bizarre. I'm sure it's just a feeling. I'm sure that's not actually the case, but it is really weird that 2 wars in a row I've missed consecutive parries on that node with Cosmic Ghost Ride. So really interesting. Okay, and then here we are going to remove Dexterity just to be super safe against this Mojo. And again, you know, there are 2 reasons to do that. One is that you can just bait out his SP1 without triggering Dexterity, which is going to degen you, and then also feed Mystic Dispersion. That's actually 2 reasons in one there. But yeah, it just makes the fight a lot safer. And, you know, I was, I guess, like, I don't know, 5 to 7% worried about this fight because I knew that I wasn't going to be able to use Flame on. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, not really a big deal. If I don't, you know, I'm not going to kill him before the poison phase comes around, but because of the Schadenfreude, I definitely do not want to hit him during the poison phase. I don't want to be inflicted with any debuffs here. So we're just going to go right in, and I'll just parry him if I have to. I'll try to hit into his block as long as that is not one of the prompts, because I don't want to feed his prompts. So I'm going to be looking out for his prompts over here. And the first prompt is block a hit, which there's nothing you can do about that. So he gets, you know, he gets a couple of those. Second one is block a hit. So we're off to a really great start here. All right, charge a heavy attack. So we don't want him to charge a heavy attack. We're just going to block his SP2. Not really a big deal. Obviously, we can't dex it because we don't have dex on. We still have charge a heavy attack. We're just going to let that fall off. Throw the SP2, which is going to pause the prompt. And hopefully the next prompt isn't terrible. It's use a special attack, which isn't a big deal because I get to kill him before he can throw a special attack. But anyway, all right. Pretty easy, pretty safe with Human Torch there. All right, and then I'll be on path 8 in section 2. We've got this Dragon Man with Human Torch. Does have Rich Get Richer and Underhand Comment. This will play a role in this fight, actually. You guys will see it. Basically, for each buff on the defender, they have a chance to, you know, they'll lower your defensive ability accuracy. Basically, they can cause your parries to fail. Now, Dragon Man only gets 1 buff natively, and that is his Power Charge buff. So, basically, when he has that buff, I do have a chance to, you know, for my parries to fail. And I just have to be mindful of that. With Human Torch, it doesn't really matter because any blocked hit from a Mystic is going to give me a Smolder. I just have to make sure that I'm not assuming that every parry that I have is going to land. Obviously, I want to try to parry him so that I can shut off Power Charge, and also parrying on this node will give me an armor buff, which will allow me to start receiving free power from the Rich Get Richer node. So anyway, a lot of talking for a super easy and straightforward fight, but we are going to use an invulnerability boost here just in case the absolute worst case scenario happens. Another note, I am going to hold my power. I'm not going to throw any specials because if he somehow gets to an SP3 and he throws his SP3, I'm going to need something that I can use to buy some time and some spacing. Because after he throws his SP3, he will be unblockable and unstoppable. So, all right, you guys are going to see here, he's got that buff. I parry him, but it doesn't land. It doesn't stun him because of Underhanded Comment. Not a big deal. And this is perfect. I'm at an SP3, so if he somehow gets to an SP3, I will have my own SP3 that I can throw to buy myself some time. But yeah, this fight is going to end up going very smoothly, and I never have to worry about his special 3, which is great. All right, so boom, dead, and then here, this fight here, we've got Omega Sentinel versus Storm Pyramid X. Now, in a pinch, CGR can take this fight. I just, it's... so Storm X, she has a 60% chance to glance basic attacks. A basic attack is basically any non-special attack. So heavy, light, and medium attacks are considered basics. And if Cosmic Ghost Rider's basic attacks are glanced, so they got a 50 or 60% chance, then that they will fail a judgment. So ideally here, you just want to have more buffs than her. And CGR is just a little bit dangerous since I had an extra slot. It was basically, do I want white mags pre-fight for some of my fights, or do I want to bring a really hard counter for this fight? And I decided that this is just a more dangerous fight if I were to use Cosmic Ghost Rider. So let's just bring in the super hard counter. And with Rich Get Richer, you guys can see I'm getting a lot of power here because I've got a ton of armor buffs. And I'm just keeping her heal blocked. Lizer kind of gave me the write-up on Omega Sentinel after my poor showing last war. And I do still have the invulnerability boost, so I don't even care if she gets to her SP3. But before she can stand up, she dies. So we are good. So, okay, we ended up winning this war. This battle group, BG2, finished with a donut, which is very exciting. It's the first donut in the Alliance this season. We have had a bunch of 1s, but not a donut yet. We finished with 6 deaths. We really finished with 5 deaths against their defense because we did have one recorded disconnect, which is always super annoying, but, we don't count that. So 5 deaths is good, and, as it usually is, of the 5, I mean, we had a really tough boss solo that what didn't quite solo, but was really close. And then everything else was just kind of like, oh, yep, okay, gotcha. We, live and learn. Now we know for next time we're going to play this fight a little bit differently. And, those are the best case scenarios there for me, because the more we can learn, as a planner, even as a player, the more you can learn, especially when you're winning wars, that's really the way that you can eventually get to being in an elite, top 3 contending alliance. So I'm really proud of where we're at. We're still in Tier 2, so until we get to Tier 1 and start putting up, 5s in Tier 1, 4s and 5s, then, we're gonna keep having to work hard, and even when we get to that point, which we will, I think our goal is to be one of those alliances that can throw up a 2 and a 3 and compete with the very best alliances in the world. So anyway, that is it, guys. Leave a like and a comment. Subscribe if you want, and I will catch you in the next video.